Choosing a path is supposed to feel like progress, a step forward, a moment of clarity. But for you, it doesn't feel that way. When you try to choose one direction, something tightens, not because the path is wrong, but because choosing it feels like turning your back on other possible lives, other versions of you, other futures that still feel alive. So instead of relief, you feel loss. It's not that you don't know how to work hard, and it's not that you're afraid to commit. It's that every serious choice feels permanent, and permanence feels heavy. You look at different paths and they don't feel like options. They feel like parts of you. And when you're asked to pick just one, it doesn't feel like choosing a direction. It feels like shrinking yourself. That's the tension we're going to talk about. It's easy to assume something is wrong with you here, that you're overthinking, that you're being dramatic about a simple decision. But this reaction has a reason. Some people can choose a path without it touching their sense of self. A job is a job. A direction is practical. But for you, paths aren't just routes. They're identities in progress. When you imagine committing to something, you don't just see tasks. You see a future version of yourself forming around it. So choosing one path doesn't just close other options. It closes other selves. That's why the loss feels real, and why it lingers even after the decision is made. This isn't indecision. It's not a lack of courage. It's a mind that experiences direction at the level of identity. Where choice doesn't live on a checklist, it lives inside who you might become. And once you see that, the struggle stops looking like a flaw. It helps to separate two things that usually get tangled together: direction and identity. Direction is what you're doing right now. Identity is who you believe you're becoming. For some minds, those two stay loosely connected. Changing direction doesn't threaten the self. But for you, they fuse quickly. A path doesn't feel temporary. It feels defining. So when you're asked to choose a direction, your mind hears a different question. Who am I allowed to be? That's why the decision feels so heavy. You're not choosing what to do next. You're choosing which version of yourself gets to exist. But here's the shift. A direction does not have to define you forever to be meaningful right now. You can let direction be seasonal without turning it into a permanent identity. When you separate what you're doing from who you are, choice stops feeling like erasure. Once you see the difference between direction and identity, the pressure starts to ease. You don't have to choose a path as a declaration of who you are. You can choose it as a place to stand for now. Not forever, not exclusively, just long enough to live inside it. This turns choice into something smaller, more humane. You're no longer asking, is this the one thing I'll commit to for the rest of my life? You're asking, is this where my attention can land right now? The other paths don't disappear. They don't stop mattering. They simply wait. And when you allow that, something changes. Choosing no longer feels like amputating parts of yourself. It feels like giving one part of you room to breathe. If choosing one path has felt like losing yourself, it doesn't mean you're broken. It means your sense of self is wide, and your mind is capable of imagining more than one meaningful life. That isn't something to fix, it's something to understand. You were never meant to compress yourself into a single permanent direction. And you don't need to decide who you are all at once. You only need a direction that can hold your attention now, and the permission to let the rest of you remain unfinished. You are not betraying other versions of yourself by choosing one path. You're giving one version the chance to exist for a while. And when the time comes, you can listen again. Not because you failed, but because your mind was always built to move this way.